This video is for Clint Benjamin Palmer, locked up for 13 years by the government at Nambour Psychiatric Prison, and that's what they are, they're worse than prisons, psychiatric facilities. 13 years he's been locked up, deprived of his liberty, tortured, drugged, sexually violated, in a genocidal practice, fully funded by politicians in Australia and throughout the world. Over 200 years, politically approved and funded murder, torture, slavery, theft, violence, drugging, forced drugging, defamation against their victims. He's been locked up for 13 consecutive years with 2.5 months leave from that genocidal facility. It's absolutely disgusting. That entire facility needs to be shut down. All psychiatric facilities throughout Australia deserve to be shut down. I've received public allegations of rape of 3 women in that facility, Nambour in Queensland, and the destroying the family's rights like they did with my family, with my brother David. This affects tens of thousands of Australians across the nation over the past 50 to 100 years up to today. They have killed thousands of Australian citizens in government facilities, particularly the psychiatric facilities, and tortured thousands more in each state. Across the nation, they have killed, the politicians have killed thousands, tens of thousands of Australians and tortured tens of thousands more. It is a genocidal practice, very violent, very destructive, Nazi-like, using the police for violence and Nazism, and the psychiatrists and their staff and other government workers. The police need to stop helping them. They need to turn around and arrest all Australian politicians, Liberal, Labor, Greens and the Nationals, who've historically been doing this up to today, and other political candidates who won't stop to fight it, are killing and torturing Australians in government facilities and the community. The police need to stop supporting their genocidal, violent genocidal work. They need to arrest all Australian politicians and arrest the psychiatrists, put them in prison for torture and murder, and shut down those facilities. We need to demolish those psychiatric facilities and have memorials set up for their tens of thousands of dead and living victims throughout Australia. This is a genocidal practice. All Australian citizens, all Australian voters need to rise up to fight to stop this. The public needs to fight, rise up with a loud voice to stop it. Otherwise, Australia will continue to be a murderous, torturous nation. A murderous, torturous nation. And that is the sin and the evil that has been coming from our parliaments. With the political made law, the politicians are 100% guilty of this, using the parliaments for murder and torture, using the political made law and public money and government facilities and government workers to practice genocide. And we need to stop it. We all need to fight to stop it. This must stop. And the genocidal power that they exert over the Australian people, the poor and the vulnerable and the weak, targeting elderly people, single people, women, children, vulnerable men, they will target the weak and vulnerable, and destroying the family's rights, destroying parents' rights, destroying teachers' rights. We all must rise up to fight to stop it. And they deserve to go to prison for genocide. There are laws under the Crimes Act 1914, federal laws. They can be jailed for 25 years for crimes against the public. This needs to be dealt with by the public. We need to stop it, because they cannot continue to murder our relatives and torture our relatives and friends and use such horrendous violence against innocent people and vulnerable people. It's disgusting. It's so disgusting. This has been going on throughout the world for 200 years, over 200 years, politicians using psychiatry and the police for Nazism. Millions of people, they have killed millions of people and tortured millions more for over 200 years since the inception of this practice before the turn of the 18th century. And there are some historical records that indicate in some countries they were using it beforehand. The politicians are deliberately doing this, 100% guilty, driving this through the political made law, through public funding, through government workers and government facilities. And it's genocidal, and it must stop, and it is one of the number one issues that must be fought publicly to stop it. So I encourage you to join Voter Rights Party, fill in the membership form, support our candidates, vote for us, help us. It's free. I've been saying for over 3 years this practice must be stopped, and the politicians need to be held accountable. They need to be put in prison. They use it as a political weapon. It's political violence. Call it Nazism, fascism, call it what you want, but it is murder, it is torture, it is stealing from the public, it is using shocking violence, defamation against their victims, and the figures are in the tens of thousands across the country. So we have a choice as a nation. We fight to stop it, or I will continue to call Australia a murderous, torturous nation. I was born here. I'm entitled to say to my public, political, economic and social views. I'm an experienced teacher for nearly 20 years. I've got a Master of Education. I've written 4 books of non-fiction literature. I do an enormous amount of research on all sorts of issues, and this is one of the most vile, disgusting, violent, evil political government practices I have ever researched. Thank you.